So TheQuartering is definitely not having a good week. His company CoffeeBrandCoffee essentially just collapsed, leaving him with over $300,000 of debt. His own employees are revolting against him over on Twitter, and worst of all, he is now begging his audience to give him more money so that he can use it to save the company he himself destroyed. And of course, he does blame his own failure on his political opponents. Now in this video, I'll showcase how TheQuartering actively lies to his viewers about his company, refuses to acknowledge that the products he's selling aren't at all ethically sourced, and prove that his amazing so-called business actually just boils down to reselling coffee from a female-owned coffee company in Salt Lake City. But before we get into all that, massive shout out to my sponsor, you. Thank you for supporting the channel. We have reached 1.5k subs, which I am very grateful for. I appreciate you a lot for that, and as promised, I'll do a sub special Q&A, meaning this is your last chance to write me a question. So if you've been watching my content a lot and there's something you've always wanted to ask me, just let me know with a comment down below and I'll answer it in the next video. Thank you once again. So here's the best way I can describe TheQuartering if you for some reason haven't heard of him yet. TheQuartering makes videos where he complains about a person/company having gone woke, or he reads a news article about said company or person while sharing his critical thoughts. He does this 5 times a day for 365 days a year. In my opinion, that's the definition of slob content. It's repetitive, it's clearly pandering to a right-wing audience, and he puts zero effort into his videos because they're hardly edited, non-scripted, and overall just offer the bare minimum production quality. Now, a lot of people tell me that they like to watch my videos because I'm usually rather nuanced with my takes. I try not to see everything as black and white and attempt to take all sides into account during most situations. However, I'm gonna be straightforward here. There won't be any nuance today because I think Jeremy from TheQuartering straight up just embodies everything wrong with modern YouTubers, and he has no redeeming qualities. This guy is the biggest leech on the platform, and I don't even dislike him for political reasons. Listen, I have a problem with YouTubers that are hypocritical, lazy, disingenuous, and milk situations for drama. Now TheQuartering is or does all these things. I've gone over some of his hypocritical antics as well as his frequent alcohol-fueled Twitter meltdowns in other videos whenever he came up as a discussion topic, and my opinion really hasn't changed. This dude just sucks. So overall, I'm making it very clear from the get-go that I do have a bias here. I don't like TheQuartering. I think his content is garbage, but I am confident that this bias hasn't clouded my judgment here because this situation is so cut and dry that I believe no matter how you feel about Jeremy and his online presence, you will have to admit that he's been very disingenuous and deceitful towards his audience once I've shared all the evidence with you. So let's get straight into it. A couple of years ago, TheQuartering announced the release of his brand new coffee company, CoffeeBrandCoffee, and Jeremy claimed that he would run this coffee business on the side while still working on his channel full time, and he clarified that he was trying to make the company completely apolitical in order to separate it from the rather controversial nature of his online presence. Now, in recent times, a lot of YouTubers have experimented with other business ventures, and the vast majority of these YouTubers don't actually own the companies they're promoting. Usually they're just figureheads that got approached with a deal by some corporate marketing and sales bros. The obvious example here is Prime. That whole company isn't really owned by Logan Paul or KSI, they're just promoting the business as if it was theirs cause it draws more attention to the brand. It's the same with Pokemon's cookies, for example. Most YouTubers don't actually own the businesses they claim to run because they simply wouldn't have the time or expertise to manage the day-to-day work of a full-blown company while simultaneously creating content for a multi-million sub YouTube channel. However, there are a few exceptions to this. Some YouTubers actually do run real companies themselves, for instance Ryan Trahan or Umpawil. Now here's something that occurred with both of them as they were starting up their brands. They had to slow down their uploads for a while because they needed to focus on their businesses. Now that's to be expected. However, when Jeremy initially launched his company, his uploads continued as usual, which already had me looking at this whole thing sideways. I kind of immediately assumed that he's probably not actually running this company and most likely just got approached with an influencer promotional deal. However, I decided to give Jeremy the benefit of the doubt for the time being because after all, his videos are so incredibly low effort that he could probably still release 5 of them a day while also operating multiple businesses on the side. I mean, come on, he just hits record and starts ranting into his mic. It's so lazy that I could probably do 20 of them per day. Anyway, so I decided not to investigate his company and just leave him be until an opportunity presented itself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that opportunity just arose. Enter Derek Guy, a random Twitter user who for some reason made it his personal mission to embarrass the shit out of TheQuartering yesterday. So TheQuartering decided to voice his opinion on the recent tariffs imposed by President Trump, and of course he doesn't see anything wrong with them. Now, it's quite ironic that this guy living in a room full of unnecessary collectibles is tweeting out opinions that can only be described as anti-consumerism, but more importantly, it's very obvious to everyone that had these tariffs occurred under Democrat leadership, Jeremy would not perceive them with the same charitability. Therefore, he got a lot of flack for this tweet. Now, this really got the ball rolling with Jeremy that day because he decided to double down on his take by dunking on Nike, a company whose stock is suffering greatly through these recent tariffs. He tweets that they should have just produced their goods in America instead of Vietnam, therefore subtly implying that companies like Nike use immoral sweatshops overseas to cut costs. Now, based on this tweet, here's a general rule that every single influencer should follow. Do not complain or try to shit on people producing something in an unethical way if you yourself also sell items that aren't exactly sourced morally. In that case, you have given away all authority to judge someone else for their practices and should just keep your mouth shut if you don't want to ruin your business. Cause realistically, no one gives a shit about people selling something like clothes that were made in Southeast Asian sweatshops. After all, everyone does it. It's something that's unfortunately accepted in society. Unless you go out of your way to spend a bunch of extra money on ethically sourced clothing, your clothes have most likely been knitted by underpaid people working in terrible conditions. This is the case for the clothes I'm wearing right now, probably your clothes as well, and even that new Queeman hoodie you've been eyeing up, it's all probably been made in a sweatshop. So because it's generally not frowned upon to wear cheap clothes, it's not something anyone can realistically hold someone else accountable for. However, once you try to attack someone for it, then you better not be selling shit that's not ethically sourced yourself, unless you want to be seen as a shameless and blatant hypocrite. Now obviously, TheQuartering decided that he wants to be the hypocrite here, cause he's also selling merch for his coffee brand, and immediately you'll notice that this stuff is really cheap. Like $8 for a shirt is a great price. His merch prices are extremely low compared to most other YouTubers. This coffee brand coffee hat is only 10 bucks for example, while people like Dream or Props sell hats for 2 to 6 times that price. By the way, I took a look at the website and apparently some people actually buy these TheQuartering coffee hats, which is just tragic. I actually think there's only two possible outcomes for TheQuartering viewers. Either you wake up at some point and realize, holy shit, I've been watching this guy make the same arguments for 3 years, maybe I should watch someone else, or you end up buying this hat, and at that point your life might as well be over. This is the official "my wife just left me" hat. Jokes aside, these cheap prices mean TheQuartering is either really generous towards his fans and barely wants to profit off his merch, or this stuff has incredibly low production costs, highly likely through the usage of underpaid foreign workers. Now, the aforementioned Derek guy decided to email Jeremy's company asking about their production details, and they revealed that they received their merch from a Nicaraguan company called Gildan. I looked into this company and immediately found accusations of harassment and workers complaining about not receiving adequate pay for their services, but in the interest of fair reporting, I will say that this company in Nicaragua doesn't seem to be as horrible as most sweatshops in Southeast Asia, because from what I could find online, they at least don't seem to be resorting to child labor. But obviously their practices are most likely still far from ethical, especially compared to American working standards. Now, Derek decided to confront TheQuartering with this information on Twitter, which left Jeremy with two options: either ignoring it outright because it very clearly made him look hypocritical, or if he wanted to just be a dick, he could have resorted to showcasing where some left-leaning YouTubers get their merch from, and he then could have made the argument that nearly everyone is involved in these shady practices. Now, instead, TheQuartering did TheQuartering things and decided to just promote his coffee in the replies without actually engaging with the accusation. Now, Derek guy, clearly unsatisfied with Jeremy's answer, hit back with another tweet. "Hi Jeremy, may I ask why you don't use USA grown coffee beans such as Kona beans from Hawaii? Also, why do you use Gildan t-shirts? There are still t-shirt manufacturers in the US." Now, this is another interesting point. Jeremy does source his coffee from Latin America, and his beans do not qualify as fair trade certified. Therefore, it is completely valid to question the ethics of his production process. But just like with clothing, most coffee companies also do not ethically source their coffee, so Jeremy could still just argue that he's being unfairly singled out here and disengage from the conversation. But instead he replies, "Hi loser, may I ask why you use a cell phone manufactured in China? I'm going to make so much money off your dumbass." Now this is an obviously flawed argument. He's trying to flip the hypocrite accusation back onto Derek, but obviously buying one phone that might have been produced under sublime working conditions pales in comparison to running a whole company dedicated to selling unethically sourced goods to thousands of people. Now Derek responded by keeping his feet on TheQuartering's neck, saying, "I'm not a nationalist, so I'm fine with things being produced abroad. I try to buy ethically produced things when I can, but I also don't run companies, you do. And you said that Nike should move its production back to the US. Would you be interested in doing so?" Now listen, this Derek guy has made 63k tweets. He's probably said a bunch of outrageous shit that I would never in a million years co-sign. But regarding just this situation, he's absolutely cooking. TheQuartering still hasn't addressed any of Derek's actual arguments, and Derek just keeps demanding an answer with every single tweet. He's really putting TheQuartering on the spot here, and just for the record, psychologically speaking, it would be very unusual for someone innocent to actively dodge the real questions and try to deflect to other talking points instead of strongly maintaining that they're not guilty. Like, if TheQuartering really went through great lengths to ethically source all of its products without exploitation, then he would definitely make sure that everybody knew. So the fact that he avoids engaging with Derek's actual talking points here is rather telling in my opinion. Now Jeremy then replies, "This isn't going well for you, keep responding. I'm going to sell 100k in coffee tomorrow." Does this guy actually think getting embarrassed on Twitter somehow is gonna increase his coffee sales? I mean, he's being accused of unethically sourcing his products after he publicly went after another company for not producing their goods in the US, and upon getting called out, he's just refusing to explain himself or tackle any of the arguments his detractors are making. How is this gonna equate to him selling more of his product? He's coming across as extremely hypocritical and just shady as hell. Now Derek then just completely destroys Jeremy by asking, "Is this because you source from sweatshops so the profit margins are high?" Now surely at this very moment Jeremy should have realized that he's obviously getting owned, so engaging with this any further would mark the point of no return, but of course Jeremy cannot take the L, therefore he tries to clap back. "I source from all over the world, keep responding, this is going to make me so much money for my many employees here in America. You know, the ones who wasted their time for this lame ass attempted own? Again, promo code Derek to save tomorrow." The statement, "You source from sweatshops," isn't even actively being denied here. "I source from all over the world" could just as well translate to "I source from sweatshops all around the globe." Like literally, as a social media management person, this is giving me such a headache. Why wouldn't you just fucking deny that you're working with sweatshops? This is such a blatant self-report. Like, in my personal opinion, the evidence for TheQuartering not ethically sourcing his products and therefore outing himself as a blatant hypocrite is downright conclusive. Now he then decides to clap back with another tweet. "I employ 15 people here in America. How many jobs have you created?" "None, that's what I thought. Promo code Derek tomorrow, big sale." So he's trying to take the moral high ground here through playing the "I am helping the economy by creating jobs" argument. Well, you're also severely damaging the economies of other countries by exploiting their cheap labor force, but I guess we're just supposed to ignore that part. Now this might be a hot take, but I actually wouldn't unconditionally write off everyone working for TheQuartering as horrible people. I believe it more so depends on what your role in the company exactly is. Like, if you're just a back office worker in TheQuartering HQ, then I wouldn't necessarily declare you as a terrible person. I mean, the job market isn't exactly looking too hot right now. Some people just gotta take what they can get. But that being said, I am still willing to believe that the absolute majority of people that actively work for TheQuartering and help him create his god-awful content probably aren't good people. Therefore, I just don't value the jobs he's creating for them in the slightest. This chick Maggie right here can be seen as pretty much the only publicly known person working for Jeremy. She's also been the one that answered Derek's email earlier. She's a conservative influencer in her own right, but she does also work for TheQuartering full time. Now even Maggie, a person who is actively getting paid by Jeremy, came out on Twitter to criticize him for his god-awful tweets. She responded to his take on the current financial situation with completely inaccurate read of the free market capitalists on X who care deeply about our country and your financial health. No arguments, just baseless insults. She then also went after Jeremy's anti-consumerism tweet by saying, "Actually Basically, much of our economy, including both of our jobs, is built on tech and audiences' access to the internet. Now, regardless of what you think of Maggie and her tweets, you gotta admit that it's pretty ironic. Jeremy's own employee is getting so sick of his idiotic Twitter meltdowns that even she is publicly criticizing him. Like, she's gotta be so tired of this man's antics that she's actively willing to risk her job just to call him out in a tweet. That's honestly outrageous, because it's entirely possible that TheQuartering would just fire this person over one single negative post, considering he doesn't come across as the type of influencer that can handle actual criticism. So I'm definitely gonna be interested in keeping up with this Maggie person and finding out whether or not she'll get to keep her job. Anyway, up to now it's been all fun and games. We've essentially just been watching Jeremy implode on Twitter and actively run his company into the ground, but I do want to use this meltdown as an opportunity to take this a step further. Let's actually dive deeper into his company and see if there are any other aspects Jeremy might have not been entirely honest about. So let's summarize Jeremy's claims about the brand. He says it's entirely apolitical.
I truly do want it to be apolitical. You're never going to get, totally get some leftist cheers by buying my coffee, because that's, to me, that's still politicizing it. I'm also not going to charge white people $2 more for the coffee as a reparations thing. Like, it's like the two sides of the same coin, and I don't want to do that. I want to build something with 50, 60 different products that people love, that they're never going to ever have to worry about checking my company's Twitter account and having it hate them or single them out. We don't want your vote. We want your business, and we're committed to earning it and keeping it as long as we possibly can, forever, hopefully. And that's what really the mission of Coffee Brand Coffee is. I've prided Coffee Brand Coffee on remaining completely apolitical, and that's literally why I called it that. Some people think the name is goofy. I get that, but it would have been easier for me to sell liberal tiers coffee or something like that. But I want my coffee to be on coffee shelves one day.
He's also repeatedly emphasizing that this is a real company where his employees handle all the day-to-day operations themselves.
There's a big difference between what I do and what most everyone else does. I don't drop ship my coffee. We roast our own special blends. We hand flavor our beans. We pack our orders. We ship our orders. We handle our customer service. We are not a drop ship outlet. We're a real coffee company. We are basically completely vertically integrated. We roast our stuff, we pack our stuff, we print our own bags, things like that.
So let's verify both of these claims. Now, credit where credit is due, I actually agreed that it would be much easier for Jeremy to just sell liberal tier coffee to pander to his audience. I mean, that's what he does with his other products. This cookbook right here, for example, is specifically designed for his right-wing fans. However, I believe the only reason he doesn't cater to the right with his coffee specifically is because he knows that he could never put liberal tier coffee in like supermarket shelves or restaurants. And on his website, he does state that he wants to work with other businesses to get him to sell his coffee. So to me, it's obvious that the lack of political allegiance just resulted from TheQuartering wanting to create a product with the ability to reach a mainstream audience. However, it should also be noted that it's debatable whether someone like TheQuartering is even fundamentally able to create an apolitical brand with himself at the wheel, because the nature of his online presence leads to almost exclusively right-wingers purchasing his products, while most of the left-wing people would probably refuse to buy something that's actively been created by Jeremy out of sheer principle. Plus, he does obviously promote this all over his channel, and I've never seen anyone outside TheQuartering sphere of influence ever mention the product. I mean, you can apply to become an affiliate on his website, however, I severely doubt anyone who's not already a fan of TheQuartering would ever even consider that option. So in my opinion, this is still clearly a right-wing product, but I want to circle back to the apolitical talking point later and shift your attention to the "we do everything ourselves" claim for the time being. So TheQuartering claims he's not just reselling coffee, but instead his employees handle the entire coffee bean roasting process themselves, and they take care of the day-to-day operations without being reliant on anyone else. Alright then, let's check out Jeremy's roasting process then. He uploaded some of the footage on his brand YouTube channel, which looks dangerously unpolished and abandoned for a company with allegedly 15 employees.
We don't want your vote. We want your business. These days, every coffee company on earth has some sort of agenda. We decided to focus on what we do best and what our customers care about the most: sourcing and roasting the very best coffee possible.
Now at first glance it appears like he's actually showing real people that he himself employs, roasting beans and completing the packaging work. So it would seem like this is a legitimate business after all. However, it took me just one Reddit search to figure out what's actually going on here. So there's this coffee roasting company over in Salt Lake City called Mill Creek Coffee, and this Reddit user right here pointed out that their factory is actually the same as the one TheQuartering shows in his promotional video, down to the guy working the machine being a Mill Creek Coffee employee wearing a CoffeeBrandCoffee t-shirt. So what's exactly going on here? Did TheQuartering buy out this company and take over their factory? Did he rent out their factory? Are they sharing this factory? What's actually happening here? Well, the truth becomes blatantly obvious once you check out Mill Creek Coffee's website. We provide private label options for customers who prefer their own brand of coffee for resale. From fulfillment to roasting to packaging, we can provide everything you need for your coffee brand. Oh, so Mill Creek Coffee provides a service where they'll do the entire production process for you, quote, providing everything you need, unquote, and this is specifically designed for resale. So TheQuartering doesn't really own a coffee company with a bunch of employees who are roasting and packaging coffee beans, but instead he's just reselling Mill Creek Coffee for a higher price. This is exactly how TheQuartering lies to his viewers about his company. I don't even think he has 15 employees. I believe it's entirely possible this whole thing is just being operated by Maggie. I mean, she's the one responding to all the emails, she features in the brand videos, and she's the only person Jeremy ever mentions when talking about their brand. Like, why is there no picture of Jeremy with all his employees or something like that? I mean, I'm not saying this as a definitive claim. He could still have a team of some sorts, but they're definitely not roasting coffee. All the actual coffee work is being done by Mill Creek Coffee. Jeremy is just reselling their products. Now this ties back to the whole apolitical thing. So TheQuartering's main issue with corporate companies nowadays is that they're too woke. They're making everything political when they should just be focused on providing the best product possible without alienating any of their customers. That's one of the main talking points TheQuartering keeps spewing to his viewers. He wants to keep what he defines as woke political messages out of media and brands. That's why he made CoffeeBrandCoffee after all. Now this might be the most hilarious aspect about this whole situation. Mill Creek Coffee actually engages in the same behavior Jeremy would deem inappropriate on their social media. They post pro-trans, pro-LGBTQ messaging on their brand accounts, and they make it very known that their company is a safe space for everyone regardless of their gender identity. So Jeremy's way of fighting corporate marketing is to resell coffee from a company that engages in all the same pro-LGBTQ corporatism he claims to be so against. If you buy from CoffeeBrandCoffee, you are purchasing coffee made by a company that directly contradicts the values Jeremy presents on his YouTube channel. Now I obviously believe that this is a massive positive, but to some of Jeremy's fans this betrayal might be downright heartbreaking. After all, they wanted to believe that Jeremy owns this real apolitical coffee company competing with all these other businesses who have opposing political agendas. And realistically, this is where I want to end this video, because his shady import practices being on full display, combined with the truth behind his company having been exposed, should be enough to convince you that he's lying about his business. But there's still more. Let's talk about how this man landed himself in $300,000 of debt. So Jeremy recently uploaded this video right here where he spoke on some troubles he encountered with his coffee company. Now for time's sake, I'll give you a brief summary. Essentially, TheQuartering claims that he worked with a third party for the production of his K-Cups. However, they apparently screwed him over, which forced Jeremy to buy the equipment needed for the manufacturing process out of his own pocket. Now Jeremy believes that this third party has decided to harm his business due to political reasons, even though he himself admits that he has no evidence for this claim. So the whole woke liberals part in the title is entirely just Jeremy's assumption. But more importantly, these unforeseen additional costs combined with some quite significant pre-existing debt has resulted in the total amount of money owed reaching a staggering $300,000.
You know, I've got $300,000 almost floating right now in debt. I'm just being dead serious.
Now, I cannot prove this, of course, but I personally believe that Jeremy has to suffer from some sort of chronic addiction that's costing him a lot, and I mean a lot of money. Because realistically, TheQuartering uploads 5 videos a day, he streams to an extremely dedicated audience multiple times per week, and has sponsors in almost every single video. So even taking frequent demonetization into account, this dude still has to be bringing in generational wealth. So for him to be in so much debt, he has to spend a shit ton ton of money on something. And considering he doesn't seem to be the type who enjoys living the fancy high life, so to say, I mean, come on, this dude pees in his basement and looks like he's satisfied with eating mac and cheese every single day. I believe he's addicted to something, and I'm not talking like alcohol, porn, or drugs, because with how much he streams, people would have noticed. Instead, I'm saying this guy's addicted to like some really bizarre thing, like maybe something video game purchase related or gambling related, or perhaps even something with AI. Like there's gotta be something that's causing him to lose all of this money. So when TheQuartering gets caught spending thousands on, I don't know, something weird like that one Twitch streamer did, I'll be there to say I told you so. Anyway, now this whole video basically boils down to TheQuartering begging his fans to buy his product so that he can get out of debt and rescue the company, which just comes across as so disingenuous to me, because all of his supporters are being blatantly misled about the true workings of this company. I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of TheQuartering viewers wouldn't donate any money if they knew that Jeremy was just reselling them unethically sourced products. Also, what really pissed me off about this video is that he pretends like his viewers helping him out this one time is going to fix everything, and it's apparently gonna have all of these positive changes.
You know, I've got $300,000 almost floating right now in debt. I'm just being dead serious because of the huge stock up for Mother's Day. Now I got to buy this machine I wasn't planning on buying. And, but if we come out the other side of this, we will be fully stocked on Amazon. We'll be fully stocked on our website. We'll be fully vertically integrated. So we'll be able to lower prices and lower costs.
And listen, I don't think you're gonna lower costs for anything considering the Trump tariffs. The only way you are ever lowering your prices would be through using even more immoral labor. I think the real issue here is you have no clue how to market your company because all you have ever done on social media is produce slop. To be honest, Jeremy's brand channel is horrible. There's barely any content and he's only running ads on his own YouTube channel, so gaining new customers is hardly even possible for him. What Jeremy should be doing instead of promising all of this shit he definitely won't be delivering on is focus on actually marketing his products, because at this rate there's absolutely no way this will ever be on supermarket shelves. Well, in all honesty, regardless of what TheQuartering does or says, this product is never gonna reach the mainstream, because any halfway competent producer, supermarket manager, or even small business owner will type Jeremy's name into Google, discover his embarrassing Twitter meltdowns, porn history, and the basement incident, and immediately discontinue cooperating with him. So yeah, I don't think this product will ever be successful. I believe he's gonna keep accumulating more debt until he eventually has to stop this whole reselling operation outright. Now, the last thing I want to briefly touch on is Jeremy claiming this is a small business.
Support small business. We really, we're about a dozen employees, and we really care. We care about you. We care about our coffee. We care about our organic teas. If you're not a coffee person, we have organic teas available. We have something for you.
I just want to put this out there. The main person running the business, Maggie, literally works in YouTube corporate marketing. She has so many connections that she's able to get her 10K sub channel officially verified on YouTube. If you know anything about the YouTube economy, you know that this is basically impossible without some serious, and we're talking serious, connections to higher ups. So the main people running the company are one of the most popular political YouTubers on the platform and a corporate marketing worker with a shit ton of YouTube connections. Sounds like a small family business to me. Like, it just annoys me when people like this compare themselves to like actual small startups. Now, in conclusion, TheQuartering's joke of a brand boils down to reselling and repackaging products that are being produced by a company whose social media behavior Jeremy himself claims to hate, while he also simultaneously uses immoral labor to produce his other products, even though he calls out other businesses on Twitter for doing the exact same thing. He's now gone broke and begging his audience to donate, even though unless he shows evidence proving otherwise, it's entirely his own fault that he's accumulated all of this debt. So the e-begging really just comes across as severely out of touch. Therefore, I'm actually glad his own employees started publicly speaking out against him. Now there's one question left to answer here. Knowing all of this, do I want TheQuartering's business to fail? Well, to keep it short and simple, yes, I would. I know there's probably some innocent back office workers that will be negatively affected if he really does have workers, but I don't care. This video is getting way too long for me to give a nuanced take, so I'm just gonna say it. I hope Jeremy's embarrassment of a company fails, because he's been dishonest about nearly everything involving the company for years now. I hope he goes broke, has to sell his house, and gets caught jacking off on stream or something. If you get caught in the crossfire as an innocent employee of his, just get another job. Really, you don't want to be working for this scumbag anyway. Okay, so last chance, ask me a question for the sub special. special, sub to the channel, like if you enjoyed, follow me on Twitter, and I really hope Jeremy doesn't respond to this because talking about him is so draining. Like, I'm going straight to fucking bed now.